So right on the heels of the DNC, the Democrat National Convention, there's an article at USA Today. This is by Crystal Nurse. And this article came out, I believe, the 24th, August 24th. And it's talking about all these, it's praising the taking down of all these Confederate monuments, statues, flags, tributes to George Washington, Thomas Jefferson, you name it. But the main focus are these monuments and statues, Confederate battle flag, everything that's attributed to the Confederacy or praises the Confederacy, and replacing them with statues of great Black American figures. Now, I don't have any problem with this as long as it's being done for the right reason. And the irony here is they're doing exactly what Hitler did in Nazi Germany, what Castro did in Cuba, Communist Cuba, by taking down these statues or these memorials. Both Hitler and Castro burned books. And they don't see it. Now they've got a clip here, freeze frame here, of one of these statues to the civil rights leaders or people involved in the civil rights movement in Minneapolis. But it starts out, for nearly 100 years, Robert E. Lee's 10,000-pound monument rode high over the city of Charlottesville. Now, I was in Charlottesville last year because I had to take a train trip down to Georgia. So you could choose to go through D.C. for a layover or Charlottesville. I chose Charlottesville. It's actually much smaller in person. So you can imagine the chaos that ensued back in 2017 when they had this Unite the Right rally. But getting back to the article, now it's been melted into bronze slabs and another memorial in town has risen to national prominence. And I can guarantee you they probably used some of the materials from these bronze slabs to create these new statues. Where's the sense in that? These Confederate monuments and statues, or the Confederate battle flag, these things are supposed to be racist, then you would not want to associate whatsoever with any materials that were used to create those items. Goes on to say here, it's on the UVA campus, titled the Memorial to Enslaved Laborers. It stands as the antithesis to the Confederacy, honoring the slaves forced to work at the university in the 1800s as carpenters, blacksmiths, roofers, stone carvers, and other back-breaking trades. Where are the memorials and statues to the Irish and Chinese indentured servants? Many of them who came over here because they had to. They had no choice because it was come to America and work your ass off or starve. Where are the tributes to them? They worked on the railroads, they worked in factories, they worked in plantation homes, out in the fields. Nobody's talking about them. Quote, all these men, women, and children lived with dignity, resisted oppression, and aspired for freedom. For more than 4 decades, the entire university was a site of enslavement, according to the UVA President's Commission on Slavery. How does this person know that? How do they know that for sure? Now we're confronting our past, uncovering new knowledge, and using that knowledge to teach, heal, and shape the future. That same monumental transformation in thinking is playing out across dozens of states in the USA, as communities from Alabama to Alaska now. Was there slavery in Alaska? Rethink who the true heroes were from their past. The result is memorials and renaming of historic places that pay homage to honorees who not so long ago would have been seen by some community leaders as too obscure or too underprivileged to merit such recognition. Well, I've said this before. Leland Stanford, governor of California in 1862, January of 1862, during his State of the State address, called the Chinese, the Asians, an inferior race. They thought the Irish were disposable. They said that about other groups as well. And you had a lot of indentured servants that worked for Native American plantation owners. And according to the Georgia State Archives site, the Georgia State Slave Laws, 1755 to 1860, and I've talked about this way back, the legal status of slaves at that time was African, mulatto, mestizos, which is somebody of European and Native American heritage, possibly Spanish and Native American heritage. So that's who the slaves were back then. But then you also had indentured servants that would work on these plantations alongside slaves. And the line between slavery and indentured servitude was very thin, because indentured servants who were convicts would serve a 7-year term. Those who were non-convicts would serve usually a 4 to 6 year term, but that could be extended without their knowledge. And the master could prevent them from marrying, and he could even sell the indentured servant to another plantation or what have you. So it goes on to talk about Sojourner Truth here. It says here, quote, "It's exciting to see local visionaries are being celebrated for the role that they have supported in their local community," said Brent Leggs, executive director of the African American Cultural Heritage Fund, after seeing Sojourner Truth memorialized in Akron, Ohio. Truth, born into slavery, was an American abolitionist and activist for African American civil rights in the 1800s. Along with the memorial in Akron, she's also the first African American woman to have a statue in the U.S. Capitol building. Again, I'm all for this as long as it's being done for the right reason. And 4 years after momentum kicked off in removing Confederate monuments in the aftermath of George Floyd's murder in May 2020, see, it all goes back to George Floyd. Didn't the George Floyd incident happen in Minneapolis? It didn't happen in the South. Didn't happen during the time of the Confederacy. So why are we taking down all these Confederate monuments? Because you have to have a scapegoat. So after George Floyd's murder in May 2020, historians and families of prominent national and black figures have started permanently memorializing their history, signifying a shift in who gets honored. Who decides that? If we're going to be about fairness and equality and inclusion, then everybody should be included in here. There should be a statue to the Irish, the Chinese, the Hispanics, the Japanese, you name it, polka dot, purple, green, African American. Everybody should get a statue. Everybody should get a memorial. The monuments honoring state's first black politicians, veterans, or other black pioneers are popping up across the country. Significant statues stand tall in Wisconsin, Virginia, Mississippi, and Oregon, praising black people for their accomplishments and how they've helped shape American history. When it's honoring the extraordinary and the ordinary, or the extraordinary and the everyday, said Salamisha Tillett, a professor of creative writing and African studies at Rutgers University, Newark, New Jersey, who, by the way, did not end slavery till December of 1865, early January of 1866. Her sister, Scheherazade Tillett, a photographer, captured a photo of her girl standing near the pedestal of the now-removed Christopher Columbus statue in Newark. So they're going after not only these Confederate monuments or statues, Christopher Columbus, Thomas Jefferson, George Washington. They want to erase American history and create their own, which sounds to me like they're doing this out of jealousy. Not because of, equality here, not because we want to right the wrongs of history. It sounds to me like jealousy. Well, in that case, go start your own damn country. That photo later became a mural, Scheherazade. Now, why is her name Scheherazade? She should rename herself because Scheherazade conjures up the image of Arab nations. It's an Arab name, isn't it? With the Arab slave traders for a long time, the trans-Saharan slave trade, as reclaiming public space, and was dubbed, "Will You Be My Monument?" Historians have noticed what the Tillett sisters are seeing and said the country is in an upward trend of creating new monuments and momentum honoring the achievements of black Americans. So I don't want to go too long with this article here. I'm kind of pressed for time here. But I thought I'd share this with you. And the funny thing is, if you go back and you look at all these plantations, a lot of talk about these slave quarters that they create on these plantations. Well, a lot of the poor whites in the South at the time were living in the same type of building. Usually one-room shacks or homes, or a log cabin was generally made out of wood because brick was expensive. So the slaves really were living no different than the poor whites, and the plantation owners, a lot of them didn't have any plumbing. They didn't have any air conditioning. So it was a different time, and it just goes to show you that history is complex. It's not so black and white. So I hope you enjoyed the video. If you did, you know what to do. You can follow me on Instagram, #JasonComposes. Because I write music in my spare time, go to X, Culture Confederacy, at Culture Confed 1 on X. Or you can find me at Substack, Culture Confederacy at Substack. This is the Culture Confederacy saying peace out, stay safe, everybody. God bless this thing called the United States. I'll catch you next time, and y'all have a great Monday. Take care.